Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the channel. And boy, do I got a story for you guys today. So last night, I get a phone call from the old man, and he says, hey, we gotta go pick up a bike tomorrow. Bought it sight unseen from an auction. We showed up there this morning, barn doors open up, and it was like something you'd see on the TV shows. Here's a barn full of bikes. This is the one we ended up taking home. It's a 1997 Harley-Davidson Road King. And I know at first glance it might not look like much, but the more you keep looking at this bike, it has a story to tell. We're gonna try to figure out what that story is. It's still got dust on it from sitting in the barn. It's not too bad, but we're gonna wash it down. We're gonna start it, see if it'll run. We're gonna do everything, taking you guys along with us. Let's figure out what the story is on this thing. The bike's all cleaned up. If you can't tell by the nicer weather, the fresh haircut, it's actually been a few days since we started recording this video. And I do have to admit, I did get the bike running off camera, but don't worry, I'm gonna show you guys what I had to do to get it running. It wasn't very much. I just wanna highlight some things with this motorcycle before we dive into that. The things I've found on it so far, and I don't have a whole lot of time into it. This bike was taken very good care of. I mean, the chrome is really in immaculate condition. Seeing how we literally pulled this out of a barn, I mean, this is like something you've seen on television. I'm gonna keep reiterating that. It was covered in dust and it was in a barn. It cannot have sat in there very long. There's no pitting on the chrome anywhere. This gentleman put a lot of money into this bike. He really cared for this bike, and you know, it's got a 50,000 miles on it. It is a 1997, so the paint isn't perfect in some spots, but it's really not all that bad. The chrome really is the kicker here. The chrome was very well taken care of, and you know, this bike is kind of a diamond in the rough a little bit. So we're gonna go over it. It grows on you, I promise. It probably looks a little like it's a certain style, but this bike starts to grow on you the more and more you look at it. So let's take a look to see what I did to get it running. Okay, let me describe to you what this bike was doing when I rode it home, because I did ride it home. We did buy it from an auction, and we actually only picked it up a few blocks away from where I live, which was wildly convenient. So, when I was trying to ride it home, I would get about 500 feet and the bike would stall out. It very clearly wasn't getting enough gas. So if you know anything about carburetors, you automatically expect the float, which is what it ended up being. And I'm gonna show you guys how easy it is to get in there and clean that up. It's not that big of a deal. So let's kind of dive into the carburetor here, and I'll explain it as we go along. This bike did not have an air cleaner cover, and likely it only had a little round one that just covered the ugliness here, but it was taken off, probably because this bike was having this problem before in its life. It's a very common thing to happen to carbureted bikes, especially when they sit for any period of time. So this particular bike, after years and years of preventative maintenance, these Allen head screws start to go to hell after a while. All right, so the actual size is this 5/32, and this one is still happy coming off with the 5/32. Now, get that out real quick. The other one's starting to strip, so we have a 4mm in there, and we're gonna ever so carefully back that one out with, of course, the wrong size, but sometimes you gotta do what you gotta do. And this one, has gone to hell way before I got it, the bike, and this is actually something I did in my street glide too. This happens. Nice cut job on it. It is now a flathead instead of an Allen, which makes it 10 times easier. And I predict that if I take this apart any more times, these other two bolts will become flatheads themselves, and that takes your air filter element right off. The next thing we're going to do is take the air cleaner backing plate off of the carburetor itself. That's these 3 bolts here and the 2 breather bolts. There are 4 little tiny screws, Phillips head screws, that hold the bowl on the carburetor. And you're gonna need a stubby to get the rear ones. So we'll just use a stubby on all of them, no big deal. All right, now that all 4 bolts are out, carburetor bowl should slide straight down. Carburetor bowl is literally a bowl that holds gasoline. It's exactly what it says it is. So, your fuel gravity feeds down from the tank. It fills the bowl up. As it fills the bowl up, this guy down here called a float floats on the fuel. And when it rises to the top, it pushes in a needle valve which shuts off the supply of gas. This way you don't get too much gas to the carburetor at any one time. And as that supply drops down, as the carburetor is using the fuel, the float drops, opening the valve, filling the bowl back up. This float and needle valve was all gummed up and it was stuck. It was stuck, not all the way closed and not all the way open. So what was happening was the carburetor bowl was filling up very slowly, okay? It was filling up slower than we were using the gasoline. So you'd get a couple 100 feet down the road and the bike would stall out. You wait a couple minutes for the bowl to fill back up and you keep on riding it. Now, it's not the smartest thing to do, but that was the easiest way to get it home at the time, and we only had to stop 2 or 3 times. It didn't come from very far. Okay, now that I have you in here nice and close, this is your float. And your float rides on this pin. All you got to do is push this pin out to drop your float. So you kind of get the motion started here with a little punch. All we're doing here is very gently pushing that pin out. See, it's not that complicated. Once that pin's out, make sure you don't lose it. Now your float will come straight down. And this is your needle valve. This is what was all jazzed up, okay? There was a lot of corrosion on this. The little tip at the top is what actually gets pushed up in there and cuts off the fuel supply from the tank, so you don't overflow the carburetor. However, at the same time, if that needle valve doesn't come all the way down, you won't get enough gas to maintain how much the engine is demanding from it, and it will bog out and cut off. So all I did was take this off and clean it up and then put this all back together. Exactly what we're going to do now. You just get this needle valve lined up into the slot. I use this screwdriver as a drift, make sure everything's lined up. Take our pin, slide that back in, very light tap. And we go ahead and put it all back together, just the way we took it apart. Now, the very first thing you might notice, and I'm sure some of you already have, is that this bike has diamond cut heads and jugs. And they do say Screaming Eagle on the heads. Now, I did ride this bike already, and I am kind of thinking that that is actually an 88 cubic inch, a full stage 3 Evolution Harley-Davidson motor, or Evo. And if that is the case, it's a lot of effort put in. I mean, I contacted my Harley-Davidson guys, my contacts, to see if they could run the VIN number and find out exactly what motor that is and when it was put in. But they could only search back a couple of years, and this must have been done before that because it is not in the records. One of the things we did find is the original owner's packet here and a whole lot of receipts, but only recent ones. And as a matter of fact, it kind of seems like the majority of the miles put on this bike have been put on it since 2016. It had a service done in 2016 with about half miles it has on it. So whether it was purchased from someone else as a second owner, we don't know. But that's what's very interesting about motorcycles, is they kind of all tell a story. And you know, if you look at this bike, it tells an interesting story. It's from Nevada. Most of these receipts are from Nevada, Arizona, and Utah, which is interesting that it come out of a barn in Pennsylvania. I don't think it sat very long in that barn. I don't know how it ended up in that barn. I don't know what the full story is. And one thing I do know is it wasn't the only motorcycle that was in the barn. So whoever had these bikes took very good care of them, and they have some stories to tell. Some of the other very interesting things you find at the second glance is all the chrome. I mean, someone put a lot of effort into putting all the chrome on this motorcycle. It has a chrome inner primary. It has chrome on the frame. The whole front end is chrome lower forks. They did nice floorboards. They spent a lot of time and effort putting the chrome on this motorcycle, and it shows. It looks very good. Not only did they spend the time and effort to put all the chrome on the bike, but they maintained it extraordinarily well. There's no pitting on this motorcycle at all. We could show you a couple shots, and I probably will here, of my 2003 Road King, where there are spots on that the chrome is pitted just because it hasn't been kept up well over the years. And even on Jared's 1990 Heritage Softail that only has 7,000 miles on it, the chrome is pitted in many places because, you know, if you have chrome, you have to keep up on it, or that's what happens. But in the case of this motorcycle, 1997, 50-some thousand miles, there is no pitting in the chrome anywhere. Again, the paint is here or there. There's some spots that show that it has 50,000 miles on it, but that's okay. You know, you need that little bit of riding patina, and, you know, for 1997 with 50,000, it looks pretty decent. All right, there's a small dent in the tank. And then, of course, there is a little bit of the custom paint on the tank. We're trying to figure out if Harley-Davidson actually did that, or that was, you know, some guy probably at the Sturgis Motorcycle Rally that did a nice paint job on there, putting a very neat eagle on there. At first glance, yeah, maybe it's not that interesting, but it grows on you. You start to appreciate it a little more and more, especially if that's someone's hand-done work. It is very interesting and makes the bike unique. All right, we could not find many other bikes that have anything close to that on the tank, so we do think that was someone's aftermarket touch. One of my favorite features of this whole motorcycle is what's on the front end. Now, it is currently daytime, and I don't know how well this is gonna show, but someone took the time and effort to put these lights around the rotor covers, which are pretty neat, okay? Let me turn them on for you. That's right, they match the bike. They're purple, and they're solid glass, which kind of leads me to believe that is, I don't know, is that neon? I've never seen anything like that. Maybe one of you guys could tell me what that is. I heard some rumors that that was a kit back in the day in the 90s. This was something you could buy and it was all the rage. I've never seen it before. In person, they look really great, especially at night. They're very interesting. They're a solid glass tube wrapped in plastic. I've never seen anything like that. So if you know what it is, let me know. I'm dying to know. I think that's kind of the perfect touch for this motorcycle. This thing kind of screams like Elvis Presley. Like it's a very interesting bike. And that is the icing on the cake. It's a little bit of neon on the wheels. Both sides, mind you, This thing is classy. I know, enough with all the talk. You guys want to hear it run. So let's start it up. And hey, it's pretty nice out. Let's take it for a ride. Ladies and gentlemen, this is it. This is my father's 1997 Road King Barn Find motorcycle. Obviously, it runs, it rides, and it's clean. It's a great bike. It's a particular taste. We're not 100% sure what we're gonna do, whether he's going to sell it, ride it, make modifications to it. Either way, it's a good running bike. If you like this video, obviously we're into everything in the motorcycle world. I'm gonna be taking you guys on a bunch of trips this summer. We're gonna get out and actually ride these things. We're just starting to come out of fake spring here in Pennsylvania. If you're from the Northeast, you know we get a fake spring every year. That's what we had a few weeks ago. We were back in the winter, but I think that's done. I think we're gonna get out, put some miles on these bikes. Stay tuned, subscribe to the channel, like this video. We'll see you in the next one. If you happen to also be a rail fan, here's some bonus content of a Norfolk Southern train running over the Tunkhannock Creek Viaduct on the old DL&W main line. Pretty neat.